Hey guys, it's Katie. Welcome back to my channel. I am so glad that you're here. Sorry if you like hear a little something with my voice, if it sounds a little bit different. I have been like ill the entire month of January and then I got it again at the end. Literally why, you ask? Couldn't tell you. I would love to know myself, but you know what? We're vibing. We're gonna get better. It's gonna be fun. Today we're gonna be chatting about all the books I read in December and in January, just because I never really talked about all the books I read in December just because of Bookmas, and I took kind of like a break at the end of the year last year. And then I also did my 2023 wrap up instead of my December wrap up, but I didn't really go into like a lot of detail about the books I read, so I wanted to give them their time to shine in this video. So this might be a little bit longer than most of my wrap-ups just because there will be more books that I'm talking about, but I'm sure that you guys don't mind a longer video. So here's one for you. Grab a snack, grab a beverage, and we're gonna get right on into it. We're gonna go ahead and start out with December. I read 9 books in the month of December. My lowest rating was 3 stars and my highest rating was 4.5 stars. So let's go ahead and start with one of the 4.5 stars that we got, which is The American Roommate Experiment by Elena Armas. This book is about a girl named Rosie, and she is kind of going through a huge life change right now. She just quit her job and now she's trying to become a writer, and just everything's kind of changing in her life. Meet the male main character, Lucas, who is kind of in the same stage of his life. So everything's just like in change mode for both of these characters, and it's kind of funny because something happened to Rosie's apartment. So Rosie stays at her best friend's place because like they're not there, and then her best friend's cousin is Lucas, and he is from Spain. So his cousin said that he could stay at her apartment, especially while she's gone. So they end up being like roommates. Yes, forced proximity. Love it. Overall, this book was absolutely adorable. I loved it so much. Rosie and Lucas, just because they're going through a lot of similar things at the same time, they can just relate to each other like no one else can. And I don't know why. I just really wasn't expecting to like this book, so I think that made me like it even more just because I wasn't expecting it. I just felt so much for these characters, felt such a connection for them, was rooting for them the entire time. Like I said, I rated it a 4.5. Next up, I read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I ended up reading this on the Libby app, which, by the way, if you guys don't have the Libby app, I highly recommend downloading it. It's basically just an app that connects you to audiobooks and ebooks through your library, so I highly recommend doing that because then you can save money on buying books too, and you just have like more books at your disposal. But I ended up reading The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins, which is the prequel to the Hunger Games trilogy, and it's also like the most recent movie that came out in the Hunger Games like world. This book follows President Snow, but it follows him as kind of like a boy, and he is a mentor in the game. So he lives in the Capitol and he's mentoring a girl from District 12. Her name is Lucy Gray, and one thing kind of leads to another, and it's just kind of talking about how Snow got higher up in the Capitol to even like become president down the line. I don't really know what it was that I didn't quite enjoy about this book. I ended up rating it a 3 star. The ending just really didn't make sense to me. I thought it was a lot longer than it really should have been, and I didn't feel entirely connected to the characters. I did enjoy the story. I found myself liking a little bit, and 3 stars, literally, like, it's not a bad rating. I just don't think it was for me, and I felt no connection to the characters, but I still like recommend it. That's what 3 star means to me anyways. Anything below a 3 star, it means like I didn't like it and I don't recommend it. I don't know if it's just because I haven't seen the movie. Maybe I'll like the movie a little bit more because, let's be real, Tom Blythe, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think we can leave that at that because you know what I mean. But anyways, I think it maybe is just because I haven't seen the movie and I kind of want to, and it just kind of felt like she wrote it because she knew it was going to become a movie, because she knows that the Hunger Games book's really popular, so she knew that like the movie would be good and popular just because they've been like well received before. So I almost feel like it wasn't like the best book, but I think it would be a great movie. Does that make sense? I feel like I didn't really explain that very well, but hopefully you understand that, because I really don't understand how else to explain that. We're gonna move on. Another one I got from the Libby app was Under One Roof. Another book I got from the Libby app was actually a novella. It's Under One Roof. It's by Allie Hazelwood, and they're like her little STEMness novellas that came in like a book of 3. This was the last one that I had to read, and it was actually my favorite. It follows these 2 characters, and they have to be like roommates for a brief period of time, so it's forced proximity, which you guys know I love. And since it was a novella, I never rate novellas 5 stars unless they're like completely blow me away, but I feel like 5 stars for a novella is kind of 3 stars. Maybe let's not say it's 5 stars, because that's kind of like, it's just not. But like on the novella spectrum of things, like a 3 star rating for a novella is really, really good. And I ended up rating this one 3 stars. I really liked it, the forced proximity and stuff like that. Do I remember anything that happened? Absolutely not, no, because it was not long. But I found myself liking the characters, giggling, and just kind of that. It was a fun novella. So if you're looking for a nice short read, Highly recommend. Then I did my first reread, I think, like ever, which is crazy. I ended up rereading the first book in the Harry Potter series, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. I rated this a 5-star. This is a 5-star series for me, and this first book in general just has so much nostalgia laced with it. I just absolutely love this one. And reading it during December too, this book just has like that cozy, warm feeling. Like you just want to like sit down with the book and finish it in one day, drink a little hot beverage, and snuggle up. I don't know. This book just gives off the best feelings and the best vibes. I love this one specifically because of the vibes that it gives. Highly recommend the series if you haven't read it yet. This one will always be a 5-star for me. I love this one. I did end up reading one holiday / Christmassy book in December, and I read The Holiday Romance by Catherine Walsh. I really enjoyed this book a lot more than I thought I was going to, just because whenever you go into a holiday or Christmassy romance book, you don't really expect a lot. A lot of people don't rate them very highly because sometimes they can be too cheesy or almost too like Hallmarky-esque, but not like in a good way where like the storyline is just good and well developed. But this one was so good. This book is about two friends named Molly and Andrew, and they've been on the same flight for like 10 years from the States to Ireland because they both like live in the same place in the States and in Ireland, and it just so happens that it's been that way, so every year they kind of catch up and stuff, but they don't really talk a lot throughout the year. That's kind of like one of the one times a year that they like interact. But during their 10th year, something happens where they're kind of like stranded in the airport, and it's really important for Andrew to go home. He's really close with his family. Christmas is huge to him, and Molly doesn't really like Christmas as much. Like it's not as important to her. Like of course she wants to see her family, but they don't have as many traditions and aren't as like holly and jolly as Andrew. Like Andrew would bring in the holly and jolly. Like he'd be wearing the Christmas sweaters and everything. He's all decked out. And Molly's just not really about it, but she's not a Grinch, if you know what I'm saying. But they get stranded, and basically Andrew wants to go home so bad, and Molly literally is doing anything in her power to get Andrew home. So they end up taking all these flights around the world and stuff like that, and it was just really adorable. I really enjoyed it. It was very cute. I rated it a 4.5. And yeah, I don't know. I just have nothing bad to say about it. It was a cute, perfect holiday romance, and I really liked it. Next up, I read The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas, and I know what you're thinking, Katie, what the heck order are you reading this in? I ended up reading this first. I'm not too sure yet how I feel about my reading order. If you know about the Throne of Glass series, then you know about all of that stuff. I'm not gonna get too into that because I am going to be talking about that in a Throne of Glass reading vlog that's coming up, so look out for that if you're excited. But I did really enjoy this book. I thought it was interesting. I thought I got to know our main character Selena a lot more. Basically all I'm gonna end up saying about this series in general, besides if you watch that reading vlog, just because I don't want to give anything away, but these books are about a girl named Selena Sardothian. She is an assassin, and this was basically her life before she went through a lot of trials and tribulations. So this is the prequel to the series. There's 7 books in the rest of the series, and basically people just say there's like a certain way that they prefer reading the prequel. I just did it in chronological order, but you can do it however you want. I rated this a 4-star. I really like this. It is set up into 5 novellas, and a lot of people say that they don't really know if they want to read this, or feel like it's not necessary, or just feel like they should read at the end or whatever. You should read this. If you want to read the Throne of Glass series, you should read this. It doesn't matter what order you do. I've had a friend read it third. I've had a friend read it last. I had other friends read it first. You have to read this. And the novellas connect. So it honestly is one whole book of her story before things happen in Throne of Glass. And it's not really separated. Like things just like it's just like any other book. It's just split up into like 5 parts. So think of it as parts instead of novellas. And I'm gonna be annoying. Like, prepare to be sick of me about this series when I finish it. And then I read Betting on You by Lynn Painter. This has been a very anticipated release for me. As we all know, I love Lynn Painter. Specifically, I love Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. And I've said it once and I said it again. Lynn Painter does no wrong when it comes to YA rom-coms. I loved this. This book is about Bailey and Charlie. It's kind of like a friends to lovers, co-workers to lovers. Like, they don't really go to the same school. And they met each other a few times before they even, like, became friends, if that makes any sense. Like, a few years pass, and then a few years later, and then a few years later. But the main part of the book is in present day. I feel like there's an extra edge to Lynn Painter's YA books because she makes them feel so real. Like, yes, there are cheesy moments, I'm not gonna lie to you, but you kind of have to swallow those. You know, you have to take them with like a grain of salt, and then you'll be fine. But the real aspects that she brings to her characters in her YA books makes them so different from a lot of authors' YA books. They don't just feel like any characters who have no consequences or real life attributes or personality. Like, these characters have real stories, they have a lot going on, they have trauma. I don't know, it was just so beautifully done, and one of my favorite tropes is in here too. I just really enjoyed this. I ended up rating it a 4.5. I really like Bailey and Charlie together. It doesn't top Better Than the Movies, but I don't know if any YA book ever will. dare I say, I don't know, or at least YA romance, but I really enjoyed this. It was very cute. If you're looking for a happy, fun, cutesy read, definitely pick up Betting on You by Lynn Painter, or just any book by Lynn Painter, honestly. I love her rom-coms. The next book I read was The Light We Lost by Jill Santopolo. I still don't really know how I feel about this book. It's very hard because this has one of my least favorite tropes in it, and it's kind of a will they, won't they type of thing. It's right person, wrong time, and it's really hard to judge a book like that. Like, this book had me feeling all sorts of emotions, and I felt really connected to the characters, and they felt very real and authentic. Do I agree with some of the things that happen in here? No. But also, like, I don't know. Like, this book was so messy, and like it hurt. It like hurt to read. Like, I was crying when I read this book. Like, not just crying, I was crying. It's just a very tragic love story, but I don't know. I ended up reading it really fast and eating it up just because the format that it's in, it has very short chapters and things are just set up nicely too. Like, if you do have a longer chapter, they have page breaks and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't know. I genuinely don't know how I feel about this book yet. I obviously felt connected and enjoyed it, but as of right now, I'm gonna be rating this a 4-star. I'm still confused as to where I'm at with it, and that's okay. Maybe the rating will change someday. Maybe I will never think about my rating for this book ever again. Do I think about this book all the time? No, not really. Is this book relatable to me at my moment in my life? No, not really. Do I recommend this book? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Like, it's just hard. I don't know what else to say. It was just very heartbreaking and tragic. I need to put this book down and talk about the next book. The last book that I read in the month of December was Terms and Conditions by Lauren Asher. This is the second book in the Dreamland Billionaire series. Basically, the whole thing with this series is that each book follows a different brother, and it follows them on their journey to accomplish something, to get something out of their grandfather's will. And basically, their grandfather owned, like, Disney World, which is kind of sick. Don't let that fool you though, because these books are spicy. Okay, they're spicy. Declan is kind of like a little grump, and his sunshiny assistant Iris agrees to basically marry him in order to follow out what he needs to do to get his part of his grandfather's will. I ended up rating this a 3.75. I don't know if I just feel like this was too long or what. I don't really know how I feel about this book still, honestly. Maybe it's more of a 3.75 for me. I don't really know. I like the characters a lot, but I just didn't really connect to them, like, at all. I don't know why or what it was for me, but I did find myself enjoying it, so I don't know. I feel like a 3.75 might be better for that, so like a 3.75 or a 4. But I do like this series. I'm excited for the next one because I think that the brother in the next book is going to be my favorite brother out of all of them. So yeah, I don't really know. I'm still kind of thinking on this one too. Sometimes it's just like so hard to come up with ratings for me. I literally don't know why. I'm just so indecisive, and I don't want to feel like the rating gives off something that I don't mean, if that makes sense. So I just don't want to like say a rating and then be like, yep, it's that, and then it just like totally not be that, you know what I mean? Also, if you're ever curious like what my specific ratings are for books, even if I change them, anything like that, they're always going to be updated on my Goodreads, and it might be like a little bit of a difference from these videos to the Goodreads because obviously like I can change the Goodreads. So follow me on there if you're ever curious about any type of ratings and all the books I read and stuff like that. Now let's go ahead and get on to the books that I read in January. I ended up reading 8 books in the month of January. My highest rating was a 4.5 and my lowest rating was a 3.75. The first book that I read in the month of January was Thank You for Listening by Julia Wellen. I think that this book was kind of hard for me because I did listen to the audiobook because she also narrates it, and Julia Wellen narrates a lot of audiobooks. So I was really excited to listen to her like narrate her own audiobook because I also have heard her narrate a lot of other audiobooks in the past. This book is basically about a girl who is an actress and then something happens and she becomes an audiobook narrator, which is kind of funny because Julia Wellen like is an audiobook narrator, like I was saying. But it just talks about this character's life. It's more of a literary fiction than it is a romance. There is some subplot of romance, but it's really not the entirety of the story. It talks about a lot of trauma the character has, and yeah, I don't really know. It's just about her life, and it's just very traumatic, very real, very raw, and I don't really remember that much from it just because I was listening to it while I was going down to Florida and back, so it was kind of like weird and like spread out a little bit, and I don't know if I ever like retained that much for some reason. But I don't know. This book was just very heartbreaking. This poor main character, there was just so many things going on in her life, and then the ending was very like almost like beautiful and like kind of wholesome and just kind of like made me happy for her. Like she got the ending that she, I don't know, like deserved almost for the most part, and I ended up rating this a 3.5. I did enjoy it, but I also just like wasn't too into it. if that makes any sense. The next book I read was Wildfire by Hannah Grace. I love Hannah Grace. This is the second book in the Icebreaker kind of Maple Hills series that she's got going on, which is a hockey romance series, but this one isn't in like the school setting or like the university setting. This one is held at a summer camp and it follows the two main characters, Russ and Aurora, and it is dual POV, which I love. Basically, Russ and Aurora come to this camp and they're not allowed to date each other because it's a rule that camp counselors can't date each other. I'll just leave it with that as for the plot. And honestly, as for the plot, there's not really a lot of plot other than they're at a summer camp and they're just vibing. This is more of a character-based book, which I find that most of Hannah Grace's books are like that. And I honestly thought this book was too long. And I kind of said that about Icebreaker a little bit too. That one was a 4.75 for me. I absolutely loved that book. I loved Nate and Stassi, but I don't know, like I feel like maybe because it's character based, like the pacing just gets weird sometimes towards the end, and it just felt like I was reading for so long. I ended up rating this book a 4.25. I really did like the characters. I liked how Russ was a little bit more awkward and shy instead of like most hockey players in books where they're just like totally like Garrett Graham, you know what I'm saying, from The Deal. Like they're very cocky and full of themselves, and I don't know, Russ just had different vibes and I really liked him. And I really did like Aurora too. She had a lot that she was going through, and that's what I like about Hannah Grace is all of her characters just feel so real and authentic. I also love the summer camp setting just because I used to go to summer camp and I worked at a summer camp, so I liked it a lot for that too. And I don't know, I really enjoyed this one, a solid 4.5. Then I continued into the Throne of Glass series. I read Throne of Glass and then I read Crown of Midnight, which is the one that comes after Throne of Glass, so technically these are 1 and 2 in the series. As you can see, we've got a little bit of tabbing going on. This one more than this one, obviously. But I'm really enjoying this series. Again, they're following Selena Sardothian, the assassin. This one is the one where she kind of goes through trials, and that's all I'm really gonna say about these two books because I don't want to give anything away because they're just like incredible and I want you to experience them for yourselves if you've never read them. This one though, the ending, absolutely insane, and I'm just so absolutely excited to continue the series in the next few months. I know that it's gonna go by so fast just because I'm already kind of addicted to it and I already want to know what happens next, like right now. I read Throne of Glass 4-star and then Crown of Midnight 4.5. And then on Kindle Unlimited, I read Behind the Net by Stephanie Archer. This book was very conflicting for me. This was a hockey romance, but when I say this book is spicy and smutty, this book is spicy and smutty, okay? This book follows Pippa and Jamie, and they knew each other from childhood, and then she ends up becoming his assistant. And it's in dual POV, and it's basically that whole thing where they were both in love with each other since they were kids, and neither one of them knew at all. So now that they're in close quarters, you know, things gonna be happening. But this book got to the point where I almost thought it was too long because of the spice. Like the spice lasted for pages and chapters. It was just almost too much for me. Now, if you're in your spicy era, this book might be the book for you. But right now, I'm just not in my spicy girl era, so maybe that's why I didn't enjoy it as much. I did, however, like the plot a lot. The plot was very cute. Jamie and Pippa were very cute. I found myself kicking my feet, giggling. I think I'm gonna rate this one a 3.75 though, just because of the things I didn't quite like about it as much. And I feel like the spice got to the point where it took away from the story. And I feel like whenever that happens, it's just like, it just feels unnecessary almost to me. Then I read One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. I ended up enjoying this one a lot more than I thought I was going to. This is the first book in the Shepherd King duology, I think that's what it's called. The second book is Two Twisted Crowns, and it's already out, and I'm very excited to continue the series. In this fantasy world, there's basically like cards, and if you tap a card, it gives you like that card's power, but the cards also have consequences, and people can also get infected by magic, and the king was basically like, if you get infected by the magic and you get the fever, then you have to die. Our main character, Elspeth, who it's all in her point of view, she was infected by the magic, but her parents like saved her and kind of hid her away from everything so she wouldn't be sacrificed because she got the illness, and now it's following her a lot later from whenever she had the illness. And basically the cards are the only form of magic that the king in this world believes are okay, and you have to collect all 12 cards to end like all magic and suffering and all of that kind of stuff, because there's also like a mist going on. Still kind of confused about the mist a little bit. I think that's what causes the illness. I don't really know. This was definitely the most unique fantasy world I have really like ever been in, which I thought was super interesting. I liked it a lot. Our main character Elspeth was super cool. She was kind of a baddie, you know, and since she was infected, her whole thing is she touched the card that's called like a nightmare card, and she basically has like a nightmare in her head talking to her. And yeah, I don't know, this book was so interesting, kept me on my toes. It was a little slow at first, but then once I got towards the end, I was like, 5-star feels like kind of getting it. But I don't think this is a 5-star just because of the beginning and all the world building and stuff like that. But the second one, might be a 5-star, low-key. I ended up rating this 4.5 just because of the slower beginning, but I really do recommend this, especially if you love fantasy books. I think you'll really appreciate the uniqueness of it all. And this is more of a gothic fantasy, but I didn't really think it was that much darker than any of the other fantasy books that I've read. So if you're kind of scared to read it, just like, don't be. And I also thought it was pretty easy to understand too. Like, once you get to the point where you get most of the world and the cards and stuff like that, like you get what you need to get to like understand the story. Then I read The Do-Over by Lynn Painter. This is another one of her YA rom-coms. This is also the special edition that is just absolutely stunning and gorgeous. I love her so much. This book follows a girl named Emily, and basically she keeps reliving Valentine's Day over and over and over again. So it has the Groundhog's Day trope. And she's a very planner girly. She's very type A. And the first Valentine's Day that she had, she was like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be the best day ever. I finally have a boyfriend. I'm gonna tell him that I love him, all that kind of stuff. And then everything that could go wrong went wrong. And then she keeps reliving it, and then it keeps on going wrong. I think I'm between a 3.5 and a 3.75 for this one. Of course, I love Lynn Painter's writing. Super easy to read, super easy to go through. This is literally less than 300 pages. I read this in 2 days. Probably could have read it in one sitting if I had the time to. I think that the Groundhog's Day trope kind of took a little bit away from me for the plot, at least. There were some longer chapters in here too, because like one chapter would literally be one day. But there were like page breaks and stuff, so I didn't really mind that as much. I liked the romance in here a lot. It was very cute and kind of not unexpected, but the way that it happened was kind of unexpected, and the time that they had together was very cute. But it's definitely not my favorite Lynn Painter book. I don't know if it's just because the ending was kind of rushed for me or what, but I thought this was cute. I thought this was fun. I thought it was, for what it was, good, if that makes any sense. So I think I'm gonna stick with a 3.75 just because I did feel a little bit connected to the characters, and it was cutesy and fun and did what it needed to do. But I think that a lot of the plot just like wasn't really my favorite, and it also has my least favorite trope, so yeah. The next book that I read was Checkmate by Ali Hazelwood. This is her YA debut, and I was actually very impressed with this. This is basically about a girl named Mallory, and it follows her story of feeling like she has to take care of her family, and she's around 18, so she should be going off to college because she's really, really smart. But instead of doing that, she takes care of her family, she pays the mortgage, she has a job that she doesn't like, all of that kind of stuff, and she's kind of feels stuck. She absolutely loved chess though growing up, and she was super good at it, but then she stopped playing. And one day her friend takes her to a chess tournament that's for charity, and she ends up playing Nolan, which is the guy in this book, and he's the #1 chess player in the world. Like, what's he doing there for a charity event? But they meet, and the rest is kind of history. She ends up getting a job offer to play chess full time for like a year. It's kind of like a fellowship thing. And then things keep going. There's a lot of chess in this book, a lot more chess and a lot more about Mallory's life than about the romance, in all honesty, even though I did enjoy the slow burn and the little crumbs of romance that we did get. But I also really enjoyed Mallory's story. I ended up rating this a 4.25. I thought this was really cute, really fun, and also just really real. Do I think that this should be marketed as a YA book? No, because there are like more adult themes, but I did really like it. I thought it was fun and interesting, and I also don't know if it should be marketed as a romance because it almost felt more literary fiction with a side of romance to me. Also, I have to say, a lot of people were talking about their qualms with this book being that it talked too much about TikTok and like almost like cringy quote unquote things. It's a YA book, so you have to go in like expecting that. In my opinion, I honestly don't think it talked too much about TikTok or anything like that. I thought this was cute, I thought this was fun, and it did what it needed to do. So if you're scared of that, I didn't really think there was too much of that in here. Okay, those are all the books that I read in the months of December and January. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you guys have any thoughts on these books, let me know down below. And I also already uploaded my February TBR video, so if you haven't checked that out yet, go ahead and check that out. And also, if you want to stay more up to date with my daily life, go ahead and check out my Instagram and my TikTok, and also my Goodreads if you want any updates on reviews and to see what I'm reading more in real time. All right, I think that's it. I hope you guys are all having a wonderful day, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.